We're live. So thank you, everyone. Thank you for being with us today. And today we are talking about tips and tricks when it comes to scaling an online business, especially as a transformational coach for men. I have Justin Dale here with me, a marketing coach and mentor, and I'm actually very excited to hear everything that Justin has to share with us when it comes to starting and scaling and growing an online coaching business. So Justin, welcome, and it's amazing to have you here today.
Great,
Would
Ken.
you please introduce yourself, to the audience and say a bit more about who you are and what you do now? I know, but let's, give this honor to the audience as well.
Totally. Thank you so much for having me. And real quick, so I'm a marketing coach. I've been involved in the personal transformation space for a long time as a client, and I have a background working in the corporate world in marketing. And then it was just a matter of time before I combined these two things because I started thinking I want to coach as well. I love participating in these events so much. What can I coach on? Well, I've been involved in marketing and graphic and web design for since 2004. And so that led to launching my business called Tribe Builder and then really focusing in on the men's transformation space and developing my program where I help people who are men who are already coaching and want to go all in and make it their full-time thing. That's really what I specialize in. So in my marketing materials, I say I help them scale to $5,000 a month in 90 days. And I absolutely love it. It's so much fun for so many reasons. So that's pretty much what I do. Yeah.
That sounds incredible. And so if I understand you correct, you're helping them also to gain freedom, right? Because you're helping them to form an online practice opposed to being, you know, in a specific place. Would that make you an online entrepreneur yourself?
Oh, absolutely. Very much so. I've always identified with um, being an entrepreneur since I was a little kid. I used to like shovel sidewalks, because it's so snowy in Canada. So that was the most obvious thing. I started that when I was, I don't know, 6 years old or something. And I also have a background in e-commerce, and I built a medical mask business during the pandemic. And so I'm really passionate about entrepreneurialism, and I think that it can really make the world a better place by through innovation. And so yeah, totally. And I love the ability to be able to change someone's life where someone maybe they're so passionate about what they do, they're so good at it, and they're just missing a couple pieces in terms of getting the word out there and attracting clients and making sales. And to go from kind of it being a side hustle to a full-time thing is such a life-changing experience. And it's really just comes down to knowledge and practice to make that happen. And a lot of people, they just don't have the they just don't have a plan for that. So that's what I do, and I love sharing that knowledge.
Amazing. And let me ask you, what do you think is the biggest challenge today in 2024 for someone who, wants to start their online coaching business? What do you come and what do you actually see on a daily basis as you're consulting and leading your client? Is it the competition? Is it the lack of funds? Is it the lack of technical expertise? So what are the most common challenges that those men who really want to start and scale their practices are faced with?
Okay, so yeah, so I got started doing marketing for established coaches that already had big email lists and an ad budget and already had a core group of clients, and I helped them scale bigger. And I was able to use my background running ads and stuff. And I found that that's a totally different thing than someone who is maybe making $500,000 a month and is dreaming about making just kind of a solid full-time income at it. And what I found is that they don't need to run ads. They don't need any fancy technology. They don't need any fancy funnels, but a lot of people, there's so many options for how to go about building an online business that it's very overwhelming. And so my system, we don't use any of that stuff. No ad spend, no fancy technology, no funnels. And one of the biggest things that people don't really get right, and once they get this dialed in, it helps them so much. And that's just picking a niche. And sometimes I think people they're not really comfortable with that term niche. It makes them feel restricted. But I learned a little while ago that Tony Robbins, as he started out helping people overcome phobias. And now he's got programs about all areas of life, everything, health, career. I don't know. I'm not super familiar with him, but everything, right? But he started off so niche. And one of the things I help people determine is who they help and what they help them with. And that sweet spot in the combination and dialing that in, and then determining what the outcome that they help people achieve. Just getting that crystal clear is so transformative for so many coaches. Yeah, that's probably the single biggest, easiest switch to make that helps people so much. And then there's some tactics about how do you get consistent leads, how do you make sales, stuff like that. But that's a really important component.
I see that makes so much sense because decision fatigue has never been greater due to all of the options, right? And infobesity, we're exposed to all those information and courses and coaches, and it's like, where do I go? Who do I listen? How do I decide? So what you're saying makes a lot of sense. Like, okay, pick one and master that one, and then you can grow. I love it. I love it. Now, here's another one, and I definitely, I'm so glad to have you here because I know this is going to help so many out there. Even if they only listen to this interview, they already have massive value. So what is one thing that you saw in the industry that everyone's kind of pushing, but in your personal opinion, it's not really, be all and end all? What is one thing or program or process or method that you see coaches and marketers are kind of swearing by, but is a fad, something that you've kind of noticed? I don't know.
Oh gosh,
is
there's something that comes to mind, and maybe it's not the biggest thing, but this is what comes to mind, is this idea of having a funnel, a sales funnel. And this was really popularized by Russell Brunson, the creator of ClickFunnels. And I love Russell Brunson. I think he's a genius. His books have inspired me so much. But I don't think people even need a funnel, or so a funnel is a website that, and typically people will try to drive traffic to a landing page and capture their email, and then they'll upsell them on their front end offer. And that stuff is so cool and it's so fun to set up. But really, to make a full-time living as a men's transformation coach, a person doesn't even need a funnel or a website or anything. They just need one offer, and they can connect with clients just through social media, and they can deliver wonderful results to their clients without ever having any kind of a sales funnel. The funnel really is social media. And this has been difficult for me to adjust to and accept, because my background as a graphic designer and web designer is I think, honestly, I'm really good at making funnels, like making them look really good, just because I did that in the corporate world for a long time, designing graphics and writing. And then it's been kind of strange for me to kind of abandon that and just kind of see that as not really being necessary. So that's one thing, because I think a lot of people do feel that, okay, I need a really nice website or a funnel. But I don't think, I know you don't. So that's one thing. Yeah.
That is marvelous. Like, thank you so much for sharing this. And I'm absolutely on agreement with you on that one. I've seen it myself. So, I'm going to ask this next question. If funnel is not what they need, right? Then what is one thing that they really need to have if they're hope to make, turn their practice into a lucrative, standalone, functional business? Like, they're
Mhm.
no, I know there's not no one thing. There's like
Mhm.
it's a mosaic. It's a process, and it's kind of a live tissue, so to speak. But where does one start, basically?
Yeah. I think one thing that is almost a must, but it's not totally necessary, but it's going to help so much, is for people to show up and speak on camera and put their face out there on social media. And that's really nerve-wracking for a lot of people. But if people can take the plunge and become comfortable doing it, it's just going to build that trust, and that uh, like their audience is just going to start to connect with them so much more, and learn about what they're doing, and become interested. And I see a lot of people are coaches, and they're maybe in their private sessions they're doing wonderful work, but they never really show up on social media, and so it's hard to know who they are and what they're about. And if they just start speaking on maybe some stories or posting some videos, it's just going to make that process of people getting to know them, getting to like them, trust them, so much faster. So that's what I really recommend. And if somebody's uncomfortable doing it, just start, just throw yourself in the deep end, and because it's possible to get to a place where you are totally free from worrying about what people think. And it's actually, it can be so fun and enjoyable to express yourself and show up on social media.
That is fascinating. And I have to be honest, it's not an answer that I've expected. I
Mhm.
was convinced you're going to say an offer, like they need to have, a $1 million offer. But I guess this makes also sense because, we buy from people that we know, trust, like, and or admire, to say the least. So
Totally.
if there is no this presence, how can one even get there? Okay. And what are some things that you're seeing in the industry overall that you think can really improve? Like when you're looking at other coaches, and especially like this men's transformational sphere, what is something that you're noticing and you're like, okay, this needs to go, or this needs to be added? What would you like to see in the next couple of years in terms of like industry shifting and how things are done and why?
Oh my gosh. You're stumping me with that question. Um, oh, you know what? I've noticed that there's coaches out there that are making big promises, and they have a very sleek presentation, and they're very convincing that they've got the answer that you're looking for. But they they're just looking to get their hands on your wallet, unfortunately. And I think a lot of people who are, they've convinced themselves that they're like doing good work, but I would almost even, it's a heavy word, but I would almost even say they're like predatorial. And this has happened to me. I've paid quite, like I've paid for a high ticket offer, and then was just heartbroken to discover that, oh my gosh, like I feel like I've been betrayed and lied to, and this is not what I was expecting. And then I've talked to a lot of other people that have had similar experiences where they paid out thousands of dollars to work with a coach, and then they got no results out of it. So I would like to see people becoming more honest and authentic about what it is that they're doing, and charge based on the results deliver rather than their own inflated sense of self-esteem. Because I think some people think, oh, just by being in presence with me is gonna bless this person or something. So yeah, that's something that I makes me angry, and I wish it wasn't like that.
Okay, it makes a lot of sense. I do agree. For the most part, yes, yes, indeed, this industry has to shift when it comes to how we approach the people and money and why do we do the things that we do, right? And with all that being said, here goes the last question for this round, at least. And I would be super privileged to have you on an interview again. So you touched upon some important things. You said, what you really do need is presence to be out there, to put yourself out there, to niche down, and just start doing it basically, and everything else is going to fall into the place. And don't overpay for a coach before you know that it's the person that can help you. And this goes to my final question here. Uh, how can one really, vet a coach? Let's say, someone wants to work with you, right? And you
Mhm.
say, okay, I'm helping coaches to go to scale up to 5K per month. Now, of course, you can say this and you can have testimonials, but how can someone really know? And not only for you, like for anyone, like what would be your advice to someone who's looking to hire a marketing coach? How
Mhm.
would they go around that in a very heartfelt, but yet again pragmatic and kind of like rational way?
Yeah, good question. I think the person has to have an accurate assessment about what they need to get to the next level, or to become who they're becoming, and then to really accurately determine that that coach is the right fit to guide them there. And then it's hard to like it's really hard to say if that person is who they really say they are. And so I would say just really thoroughly check them out, check out their online presence. If you can have conversations with other people that have had experiences with them, that's really effective. And maybe be don't put yourself in a position where if it doesn't work out, it's a tragic loss for you, because there is always a little bit of a risk in working with a client, in the sense of, is it going to deliver what you are looking for, and are you capable of doing the work? Because sometimes the client is not necessarily qualified to execute on what that coach is providing. And so I think as coaches, we need to be as transparent as possible to allow potential clients to really come to that understanding of who we are, what we offer, where we're capable of guiding them. And just people need to really do their due diligence about what they can expect in the process. What's the outcome that they can achieve, and is it a good fit? And so both parties need to determine, is this a good fit? Are we going to be able to take this client to where they want to go? And then yeah, that's I'll just leave it at that, I guess.
Brilliant. And I love how you said, don't invest all of your money. I love that part because I know a lot of people actually borrow money to work with coaches. And this is definitely not something I would recommend. Only invest if you have savings and if you can afford that. Don't invest in a coach if you need to go out there and borrow money and whoever's going to try to recruit you and sell you on that, like what you said, this predatorial nature. This is already a massive red flag that you should not be taking that offer. I love that. I endorse that. And Justin, I just want to thank you. Thank you for your time. Thank you for this call. Thank you for your expertise. This has been absolutely brilliant. I appreciate you and your knowledge and your time.
Thank you so much for having me, and yeah, I love talking with you. So yeah, it's been great. And
Um,
I'd love to ask you some questions if we've got a little bit more time. right?
We certainly do. We certainly do.
Awesome. Okay, so what I've noticed as I've gotten to know and appreciate you more, a couple dimensions of your work have really jumped out at me. One is the you're really involved in the neurodivergent sphere, I guess, for lack of a better word. And then also, I love that you're bringing in some sort of kind of metaphysical, occult, esoteric elements into it as well. And I want to start with the neurodivergent aspect of this. That's a term that I think I started hearing maybe a couple of years ago. And I have a little bit of an idea of what I think it is. The way I think about it, and I'm looking forward to hearing your explanation. I think of it as like the universe is kind of perpetually creating new, novel, potential um, things, and human consciousness is evolving, and the universe is just creating new variations of consciousness and perspectives and types of people. And is that kind of what neurodivergence is, or what? How do you define neurodivergence?
Okay, I thank you for asking this, and just going to kind of quickly introduce myself for your audience that may not be acquainted with me. My name is Senna Taylor, and I'm an empowerment and breakthrough coach for a neurodiverse visionary, for conscious creators, empathetic entrepreneurs, and visionaries who are looking to make an impact and really execute on their potential in their life and business. I started out as a business coach and then just kind of transgressed into an empowerment coach, holistic coach. Nowadays, I consult people from across the globe as I'm doing my travelings because I'm kind of mostly rotational, so between Asia, Europe, and Latin America. And this is what you said, what is neurodiversity? And I can, quote you a Oxford dictionary. But basically, I help people who are different and people whose biochemistry is different than the most, right? So I'm talking about people with ADHD, for example, dyslexia, Asperger's, autism, and all those people whose brain, most of my people, I dare to say 90% of people that I advise have ADHD, which is
Oh,
attention deficit disorder, right? Which is brain impairment where we do not have enough dopamine circulating through our system. And as you know, dopamine is in charge of many things, such as motivation, such as ability to focus. And all of my clients, that is kind of really exclusive to them, are hypersensitive. So everything we go through, everything we feel is heightened, right? And as I've started my journey, I realized that not only the way of living, but the way of starting and running and succeeding in business arena is going to be completely different for someone who is neurodiverse and for someone who is neurotypical. So with time, as I got my own ADHD diagnosis, I started to really understand patterns, and I started to understand how can this movement of sensitive entrepreneurship, which is how I call it, empathetic entrepreneurship, how can this be a game changer for people who are different? So neurodiversity is actually different brain chemistry, which
mhm.
then as a result has us perceiving the world, reality, and everything around us in a very distinctive way, which is can be amazing, it can be not so amazing, depending on how we use it and do we use it to begin.
Nice. Okay. And do you find that neurodivergent people are usually aware that they're neurodivergent, or is it they consult a doctor and get diagnosed, or like, or how does a neurodivergent individual get to the point where they're like, okay, I'm neurodivergent, and now I'm going to work with Tana, the empowerment coach, and we're going to maybe even use this as a superpower rather than a weakness. That's kind of my guess, right? Is kind of what the
Yes,
process is like, right?
yes. And that's an amazing question. And when I started the rebranding process, which I'm in the midst of, this was the actual question, right? Because to your answer, 95% of people who come to me do not know that they're neurodivergent. So I've tried to lead with ADHD this and ADHD that and the neurodiversity. For the most part, they do not know, right? But what they are very aware of are the symptoms, right? So let me ability to hyper focus on something and not to focus at all on something else, especially if that something else is boring, repetitive, and no interest to them whatsoever. Oh, by the way, you're lagging a little bit. I just want to make sure that you can hear me and see me properly.
Yeah, loud and clear. Yeah, sorry. I need to do something about my internet. It's downstairs in the living room. They just installed it a week ago and being a bit of a problem. But I can hear you
Don't
loud and
worry,
clear.
not that's good. That's good. So basically, neurodiversity does show itself in plethora of different ways, right? And actually, to me, I only got diagnosed, an official diagnosis of ADHD like some 3 years ago, right? So, but for example, inability to execute on the projects that I have lined up, even though I know their world's changing. This was my thing, right? Because I had written outline for 7 different books and wrote maybe a first chapter of each one. So this chronic procrastination, right? Then this inability, damned if you do, damned if you don't, kind of, because not only with the things you don't want to do, even with the things that you do want to do, then we also have something that is called rejection sensitivity. And this has been the most prominent one, not only for me, but mostly for my clients, to say the least, because, when we're running our own practice, whatever, it can be our service-based business, it can be product-based business, it doesn't really matter. If and when it comes to the personal interaction, the personal sales process, most of us are doing that, especially from the beginning, on our own, right? We don't usually come with a sales team. So we are our sales team until we get to expand. Now, you know better than I do, then when you have to sell and sell and sell and sell, you're going to get rejected a lot of times, right? What I realize that people are doing, they're taking it personally, and some of them are really taking it close to heart, and it's very discouraging. But we know that like 80% of prospects are going to say no by default, right? This is just the industry average across industries. I'm hypothesizing here because it can be between 15 and 25%, but let's take 20% as a golden middle of close rate, which means that if you're offering your services, let's say coaching, right, for your men, right, they're going to be hopping on a sales call one after the other, the other, the other. And imagine if you have 5 sales calls in one day and you don't close a single one. What that's going to do to your self-esteem, what that's going to do to you, to your mental state, to everything, right? And then you're going to go to this vortex of the circle of doom where you're like, oh, no, 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 this is not for me. Whereas it might be for you, but you might just not be the closing person. Maybe you need to delegate this altogether because, once again, you're different. So people would come to me for plethora of reasons, and this is when I'm talking upon business, right? About the business, and I also have the personal aspect, right? Inability to concretize the relationships, inability to truly show your essence. I have a lot of A level executives who are incredibly successful, especially those with Asperger's. Like money, not an issue, but when it comes to actually going and perhaps being there in person and doing things in person, like as long as they hide behind the camera, it's fine. But to go and to do things in person, the workshops in person, to show themselves, naked, right? It becomes a problem. Or they can have everything career-wise, but when it comes to actually forming relationships, because they're different, because they perceive the world differently, it's gonna be almost impossible. So these are like the 2 groups that I advise because once again, I am a life coach and I do help with people with strategy and business because I started out as a business coach. But this really tackling neurodiversity permeates all spheres of life, not only the business.
Yeah, totally. And so when a client comes to you and they're neurodivergent, and you mentioned there's different styles of that. It could be Asperger's, it can be ADHD. So I'm sure they have some different needs. But what what's the process like in terms of like, so you help them make some changes, right? And is it changes in habits? Is it changes in ways of thinking? Is it kind of modifying, like, let's say they're a business, they run their own business. What are some tweaks that they can do to make things go better for them, like to kind of minimize the challenges that their neurodivergence may be causing for them?
That's an excellent question. Thank you for asking it. I'm super excited to answer it. So the thing is, I do not focus on their neurodiverse uh, uh, um, in a sense that it's always useful to know how are they neurodiverse, right? Especially as I said, most of them are ADHD, and then I immediately know, okay, when it comes to lifestyle changes, we need to boost up on protein. We need to implement certain supplements, right? I also advocate psilocybin and microdosing with psilocybin, which are magical mushrooms, as you know. So there is that. But the very first thing are not tips and tweaks and edits. That is maybe the second or the third thing. The very first thing is working on something that didn't get all along, which is complete radical self acceptance.
Wow, nice.
Because you have to understand, for most of these people, they've been told they're too much, they're too little, they're too dramatic, they're too intense, they're too deep. They were misunderstood by the society because the society does not function like them, and they're very used to suppressing themselves and their true selves, their highest selves. And this is basically their modus operandi. So most of the time, they only even function on like 30% of their potential because such a huge part of themselves is suppressed.
Wow,
So
interesting.
what we, what we do, we first lay it out all on the table, right? Because we are trying to understand, it's like get to know you again process, right? And this is why it's so powerful, and this is why it's so transformational. Because let's see what are the abandoned parts of yourself that you completely neglected, shunned even, right? Because you were taught, because it was praised. And so I would have, let me give you an example. I had a woman who came to me originally to start her business, coaching business for moms who have children with ADHD. And the transformation was so radical that she realized that the biggest burden to her was her husband.
Oh, wow.
So, and she decided to separate after 18 years of marriage.
Wow.
And she moved, and then her husband was completely non-compliant with her, aspirations for mystical stuff like access bars of consciousness and stuff like that. So she completely pivoted into that direction. She found a job first time in 18 years because she's been a housewife, and now she's thriving, right? Basically already living on her own for 2 years. That was like a couple of years ago, right? And she also traveled all the way from Europe to Mexico to actually have an experience with me in person.
Nice.
So another example, I've met a beautiful young prodigy from Estonia who came to me, and he was 21 at the time, and he ran a incredibly successful marketing agency for paid Facebook advertising. Co-ran, he had a partner, right? But he was miserable. Everything
Mm,
about that, like the money was there on point, but he was miserable. And the only thing that he actually wanted to do is to travel and then to give himself time and space to discover what he really wants. So by working with me, and he's a big fan of ships and space and Elon Musk and stuff like that. So 2 years down the line, he opened his own dropshipping company for spacecraft, and now he's thriving that way. And so it's really, you know, okay, which are the parts of you that are abandoned, that are not expressed, that are not put out there? Then, for example, actually, very, very interestingly enough, now I'm finishing the collaboration with a client of mine who came to me as a nutritional coach, as a scientist, and in the end, we understood that he's actually a male transformational coach for men with autism, right?
oh,
Because
nice.
like that is his journey. So as I said, there's so much breakthroughs that happen once those people actually allow themselves to be who they are, to go into the hidden parts of themselves, and then we actively work on showing that and living that on a daily basis. Not only writing about it, not only filming about it, but how can you challenge yourself to go a step more a step further each and every single day. And just to kind of wrap this up by saying that with neurodiverse is different, right? Because we usually have to take two steps forward and then we rest. Because if we don't rest, if we could just force ourselves, walk it off or push through it or fake it till you make it, that's going to set us back and we'll go 3 steps forward. So 2 steps forward, 3 steps backwards. So 2 steps forward, rest. 1 step forward, rest, right? So the pace has to be tweaked and tailored and customized. And this is how we do it and why we do it.
Nice. So self-acceptance is a big part of the process.
The biggest.
Okay, great. Well, I could keep asking you questions all day. Did you want to keep talking, or I know you had to get going. I'm not sure where we're at in terms of the timeline.
Yes, we're okay. So I do believe we have time for one more question before we close the interview.
Okay. I wanted to ask about this process of self-acceptance. I think probably working with you as an empowerment coach, probably in a lot of cases, just kind of gives them permission to accept themselves. But what are some of the details involved in that process of self-acceptance? Is it really just making that decision to accept yourself, or is there more to it than that?
Wow, that's such a deep question and on point completely. That is a Scorpio side of you, I guess. Drilling down all the way down.
I'm trying.
Self-acceptance as such has been loosely thrown around, and it kind of sounds very wooey, right, out there. But this is a process. Self-acceptance is not like one day I'm going to start to accept myself and bam, I would love for it to be like that, but it's not. And I always say self-acceptance, you can actually see the difference in your life, in your business, in your body when you truly master self-acceptance. This tight feeling in chest, in this gut that is disrupted, this inability to walk and stand tall, this kind of reluctance to talk to people, to look them in the eyes, to form deep and meaningful connections is there. And it really permeates through spheres of life. From the way you eat, you sleep, you make love, you dance. There's so many different aspects of self-acceptance. And by the end of the process, you feel like you for perhaps first time in your life, right? There's a lot of crying in movement involved. There is a lot of exuding and releasing because, I mostly work with very successful men. Most of my clients are men. Most of my clients are extremely successful men. And it's as if they've been given the permission to really open like everything, good and bad, beautiful and ugly, and let it all out. And there's something so liberating about that, times and times and times again. So I would say definitely it's not from today till tomorrow. And there are certain practices that we would do, which don't only include meditations and stuff like that. That's a soft spot, right? But I'm talking about, with them, I always say, what scares you the most and how can we make it happen in the next 2 weeks? Which are the practical steps we're going to take? What do you want, but it scares the hell out of you? Okay, let's go there. Because you know how it is. The coaching is always action-oriented. It's not only about sitting down and talking and listening. It's about what are we going to do? But this time as you, as who you truly are and not who you think you are, which is still a fine line to walk on. Awesome. If that answers your question.
Totally. And I'm sure that you mentioned the microdosing and that the tweaks to the diet, and I'm sure that combined with some of those processes can be very transformative for these people that you're helping. So yeah, it sounds awesome.
Indeed. Well, thank you so much for your questions. It was quite fun, and I will say this: you have a freebie for our guests, don't you? Can you tell us where can people find you, and where can they find your freebie?
Okay, yes. So lately I've been really active on Facebook, and I'm on Instagram, and I've I just did a new YouTube video that's everything you need to know about video editing for your online coaching business. So you can check that out. That's on my YouTube channel. You can find me at Tribe Builder. That's my username on Instagram and YouTube, and you can find me at Justin Dale on Facebook. So I would say just check me out there, and yeah, I'm always creating some new content. So that's a good video if you are an online coach and you're looking at, okay, so now I need to put on this hat of being a filmmaker. Apparently, I really break it down. So yeah, I'd recommend that to people. Yeah, and how about yourself? Where can people find more about you?
Thank you for asking me. And just for everyone listening, we're going to be pasting Justin's link in the description of this video. So subscribe and click down below. You're going to see Justin's freebie that we are so grateful for. And as for me, you can find me on www.taylorsenna.com. And what you will find as well after the Justin's freebie, you're going to find my freebie, Opening the Heart Chakra, which is a workshop for everyone, whether or not you believe in chakras. Go through the workshop, because that workshop was initially charged $100 for, and I decided to give it completely free of charge. And it's about truly going into your deep self, into your heartfelt self, into your soul, and understanding what can you do from a soul standpoint and a heart standpoint to start living your truth and start living who you are and the destiny that is already yours.
Amazing. I'm going to check that out myself.
Wonderful. Likewise, Justin. It's been an honor and a privilege, and I am so hyped for this and grateful and thankful. Thank you for being with us today.
Yes, thank you for having me. It's been so great to connect, and I really appreciate you and the work that you're doing.
Thank you. So thank you everyone for tuning in, and keep following Senna Taylor's videos for more.
Totally.